A very good evening. You're watching Primetime News on TV1 live and direct from our Newsfirst studios in Colombo. Bringing you the news, I'm Jod Abdin.
And I'm Naveksha Gunasekara. Here are your headlines for tonight.
Seven-member committee appointed to review Norchole coal testing process. New shipment of litro gas cylinders to reach the market by the 12th of next month. Former police inspector Jagat Nishanta remanded over shooting at Valigama W15 hotel. Academics urge authorities not to harass or intimidate Professor Maitri Vikramasinghe during investigations. Mexico deploys 2,500 additional soldiers to violence-hit regions.
Energy Mafia.
And on to those stories in detail. In your top story this evening, a special committee was appointed today to review the currently operational coal tender. Meanwhile, it has now been 11 years since the bond scam, regarded as the largest financial fraud to have taken place in the country. At the same time, why is a LP gas shortage emerging? What issues lie behind it? Newsfirst Charlene Benedict now joins us with more.
In the recent times, you would have seen renewed allegations of corruption and fraud being spoken of in Parliament, politicians shouting out on behalf of you and me to rid Sri Lanka of corruption, or so they say. It almost appears as if every supposed allegation of corruption that they raise is the largest fraud and corruption that took place in Sri Lanka. But there are some incidents that did take place in Sri Lanka. There are some facts that have been established. There are some matters that are undeniable. Today we are going to start off with one of those acts of fraud and corruption that the government of Sri Lanka and the country as a whole has still not been able to compute the loss that it caused to Sri Lanka. And this is none other than the central bank bond scam. Now, since the inception, since the beginning, since the time this bond scam occurred, and there were those who now cry wolf, who said there wasn't a bond scam that took place, when at a time when people wrote books that a bond scam did not took place. It was Newsfirst that came forward and brought to you details, proper details explicitly with regard to the bond scam. And this led, of course, to the appointment of a parliamentary select committee, a presidential commission that inquired into this matter. And now that matter is before a court of law, with several thousand charges being filed against the accused for the central bank bond scam. But while all of this was happening, there were those who gave assurances in Parliament that one of the main suspects in the central bank bond scam will be present in court, will be there before a court of justice, and that he was simply traveling overseas for a family commitment. But at a time when people in Parliament at the time allowed these white-collar criminals to leave the country and allowed these crimes, these cases of fraud and corruption, massive fraud and corruption in Sri Lanka to take place, it is against such a backdrop that the Aragalaya then arose. What was the demand of those who participated in the Aragalaya? They wanted a change in the system. They wanted the money of the general public that was stolen from the people to be returned to the people, and for the wrongdoers who were responsible for stealing that money and putting us through all that sorrow and misery to be brought to book, to be punished. And speaking of these corruption scandals, and especially since we are starting off with the central bank bond scam, let's take a look back and refresh our memory as to what exactly happened and where we are today.
Do you remember?
11 years have passed, a decade in which political decisions targeted so-called black band criminals, while white-collar criminals sat on committees and issued fat notes protected by the very system meant to hold them accountable. In 2015, a government that came to power promising to end fraud and corruption under good governance appointed Arjuna Mahendran as governor of the central bank flown in from Singapore. This appointment sparked objections even within the cabinet. The only reason a foreign national was brought in for the post was personal familiarity. Mahendran assumed office in January 2015. Just weeks later, on the 27th February 2015, the infamous first Treasury bond scam took place. The allegation, internal central bank decisions were leaked to acquaintances, allowing bond issuances in a manner that financially harmed the country. According to the then Auditor General, professional audit findings revealed that Employees Provident Fund alone suffered losses exceeding 9 billion rupees within moments. 11 years on, there is still no clear public understanding of the actual loss. Shouldn't the real amount be recalculated?
Do you remember?
Another Treasury bond scam occurred in March 2016. Its losses too are still not clearly calculated. As Ajit Niwad Cabral said on the 14th July 2015, the estimated loss from the first bond scam at the time was 590 billion rupees. A presidential commission was appointed. Testimonies were recorded, but the report now lies within the Department of National Archives, accessible only in 2048.
Do you remember?
Mahendran told the parliamentary committee about who gave instructions for the critical decisions. It is no secret who dissolved parliament before the committee report was released and who added footnotes to distort its findings. The country also knows who defended Mahendran by claiming he had left Sri Lanka to attend a wedding despite mounting allegations. Even after a former president placed more than 21,000 signatures, Mahendran could not be brought back. Court proceedings on the bond transactions are now underway. Mahendran has an active warrant which has also been sent to Interpol. Yet, he remains at large. This is what two individuals who occupied the highest seats of economic authority at the central bank did to the country. What happened to the assurance given by the Prime Minister of that time in Parliament regarding Arjuna Mahendran? Whose wishes were these decisions carried out for? The people of this country know who pushed for these decisions and who protected those involved. Today, the public is watching to see whether justice will finally be served. Do not forget, the current government was elected with the hope that those who stole public wealth, defrauded the nation, misused state resources or caused losses would be brought before the law.
Newsfirst with the people.
Right after the central bank bond scam, there was a flip in government. There were those who promised justice for the central bank bond scam. But until today, no government has been able to deliver justice to the general public, to the members of the EPF and ETF who had their money stolen through the central bank bond scam. What is the stance of the current government with regard to the central bank bond scam and the progress of the investigations into it?
මේ මහබැංකු බැඳුම් කර සිද්ධිය සම්බන්ධයෙන් ගත්තාම මේ අවුරුද්දට අවුරුදු 11ක් මේ මාසේ පෙබරවාරි මාසේ ගත වෙන්නේ දැනගන්න කැමති වර්තමාන තත්ත්වය කොයි වගේද මේ විමර්ශනවල ප්‍රගතිය සහ නඩු කටයුතු පවත්වාගෙන යාම සම්බන්ධයෙන්
මේකේ ප්‍රධාන චූතිතයෙක් වන
One of the main suspects in this case, Arjuna Mahendran, went to Singapore. He left after informing then Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe that he was travelling to attend a wedding. We are continuing with the legal proceedings. Indictments have been filed and the case is being taken forward in court. Diplomatic intervention is underway to bring him back. It is not a simple process. However, whether he is in the country or not, the court proceedings will move forward. We are taking steps at the diplomatic level to bring him back as soon as possible. We will not allow anyone to escape the law. It is the expectation of the government that every individual who acted against the law of this country will be brought before justice.
නීති හමුවට පැමිණීම තමයි රාජ්‍යයේ බලාපොරොත්තුව.
Another burning question in Sri Lanka these days that's making its way around social media, among political discussions and debates, is the gas shortage in Sri Lanka. Is there really a gas shortage in Sri Lanka? If so, what was the reason for this gas shortage? Now, Litro has come out and made an announcement that new gas cylinders will be issued to the market to address the situation that has arisen. What exactly has happened here? Let's take a look.
Litro currently releases 1,200 metric tons of LP gas to the market daily. Yesterday, the company increased that amount to 1,700 metric tons as part of an accelerated supply operation. An additional 500 metric tons is scheduled to be released today and tomorrow as part of the extended supply plan. What is LAUGFS saying? LAUGFS Gas PLC says a vessel carrying 3,500 metric tons of LP gas is expected to berth on the 27th of this month. LAUGFS Chief Executive Officer Nalinda Kurukulasuriya said loading operations for this shipment are already underway in the Maldives. He added that 4 more vessels have been ordered. Here's what the government says about the gas situation.
On average, about 80% of the country's gas requirement is supplied by Litro, while the remaining 20% is supplied by LAUGFS Gas. In January, the national requirement was 23,000 metric tons. The government carried out a procurement process and a supply delivered a stock of 24,000 metric tons. For February, the requirement was reported as 28,000 metric tons. Relevant gas stocks are currently being received. Litro received a shipment of 3,900 metric tons on the 22nd, followed by another 3,900 metric tons on the 23rd. A further gas shipment is scheduled to arrive on the 26th. Accordingly, 130,000 gas cylinders were released to the market on the 20th and 21st. Based on these developments, it appears that the situation is gradually easing.
Questions continue to surface regarding the operations of the LAUGFS gas terminal in Hambantota. The LAUGFS Hambantota storage terminal has a capacity of 30,000 metric tons. The government had granted special concessionary conditions through the Board of Investment for the construction of this facility. Under the agreement between LAUGFS and the government, 80% of the total LP gas supply from the Hambantota terminal is to be allocated for export, while 20% is to be released to the domestic market. Initially, LAUGFS was granted permission to release 40% to the local market for a period of 4 years instead of the standard 20%. However, several developments took place thereafter. In 2021, proposals were submitted for Litro and LAUGFS to jointly handle gas procurement, transport and storage. Although entities were formed, the collaboration was never implemented. During this period, LP gas prices increased and at times LAUGFS even suspended its imports. A Board of Investment audit letter revealed that several findings regarding LAUGFS domestic gas release. The audit highlighted that although LAUGFS was permitted to release 40% of the Hambantota terminal's supply to the local market, the company had exceeded its limit, causing a distortion that affected Litro's market share. As a result of this situation, LAUGFS temporarily halted its domestic supply. Why is the company unable to operate with the 20% domestic quota it currently holds? According to available information, LAUGFS is facing problems related to its suppliers. The standard LPG composition used in Sri Lanka contains a maximum of 30% propane. The LPG produced by LAUGFS contains 25% propane and 75% butane. Obtaining shipments with this precise 25 to 75 blend has become a challenge. Of the 10,000 metric tons that LAUGFS is permitted to release to the domestic market, only a small quantity of LP gas with the required 27 to 75 international blend is currently available in global markets, creating an additional challenge for the company.
Another hot topic on political discussions and forums these days is coal. Was substandard coal imported into Sri Lanka? Was there corruption involved in the import of this substandard coal into Sri Lanka? Was the tender procedure followed properly? These are all questions that beg very serious answers. Now, a committee of experts, including officials from the ministry, has been appointed to inquire into this matter. Let's take a look at what the progress is like on that front.
A 7-member committee had been appointed to review the current coal supply to the Nurochale power plant and submit a report within 1 month. The committee is chaired by Professor W.D.A.S. Rodrigo of the Department of Electrical Engineering at the University of Moratuwa. The members of the committee are Dr. N.A.I.D. Nisanka, Senior Lecturer, Department of Mechanical Engineering, University of Moratuwa, Dr. I.U. Attanayaka, Senior Lecturer, Department of Mechanical Engineering, University of Moratuwa, Dr. R.M.D.S. Gunaratna, Senior Lecturer, Department of Chemical and Process Engineering, University of Moratuwa; Dr. Udita Wijewardena, Department of Electrical and Electronic Engineering, University of Jayewardenepura; Dr. Geethal Siriwardena, Department of Mechanical Engineering, University of Jayewardenepura; and KLRC Vijay Singha, Additional Secretary, Ministry of Energy.
Those who calculated losses that even exceeding the expertise of subject matter specialists now have the opportunity to present their methods to this committee. Based on that, the country will be able to know whether those calculations are accurate and where exactly the losses occurred.
Allegations raised by opposition groups claiming corruption and fraud in the implementation of the coal tender were explained in detail today at the Cabinet Decisions media briefing.
Kilo calorie 5900ට වඩා වැඩි නම් තමයි ඒ තොගේ ඒ නව ලංකාව බාර ගන්න. ඒ අනුව මෙතෙක් දැන් අද
If the coal stock has more than 5,900 kilocalories, only then will Sri Lanka accept it from the vessel. Accordingly, as of today, 10 vessels have arrived. All 10 vessels have load port reports showing the coal has calorific values above 5,900. If it is below 5,900, we will not accept it. So all these 10 vessels exceeding 5,900. Then, once the coal arrives and is unloaded in Sri Lanka, a discharge port report is obtained from an accredited laboratory. If that report shows a calorific value below 5,900, a penalty of double the amount is charged. If the value is between 5,900 and 6,150 kilocalories, a single penalty is imposed. Therefore, there is no issue regarding the coal quality. Also, for the first time, steps were taken this year to verify the laboratory that issues the initial load port report. I believe no one has a problem with this process. Out of the 10 vessels that arrived, unloading of 8 vessels have already been completed. The remaining vessel is currently being unloaded, and by tonight it should be completed.
Now, attack සම්පූර්ණ බාල අවසන් වෙලා තිබෙන්නේ. ඉතිරි නැවේ ගල්ලංගුරු ගොඩබාමින් පවතිනවා. අද රාත්‍රී වෙනකොට ඒ ගොඩබෑම අවසන් කරන්න පුළුවන්කම ලැබෙවි.
Have reports been received for all these vessels?
නැව් 6ක වාර්තා ලැබිලා තිබෙනවා.
We have received reports for 6 vessels. The first vessel carried 59,831 metric tons of coal. Since the coal did not meet the required standard, a penalty was imposed. The penalty charged was $2.07 million because the calorific value was below 5,900. For the remaining vessels, penalties were also imposed as follows. Second vessel, $436,001. Third vessel, $484,929. Fourth vessel, $345,652. Fifth vessel, $50,192. And sixth vessel, $510,678. Our specification requires a calorific value of 5,900 to 6,150 kilocalories per kilogram. These vessels fell within that range, so a single penalty was imposed. This is the situation. We have followed the correct procedure and imposed penalties according to existing regulations.
ක්‍රමවේදය නිවැරදිව අනුගමනය කරලා තිබෙනවා. ඒ අනුව දැනට පවතින නීති රීති අනුව ඒ දඩායි කිරීම කරගෙන තිබෙනවා.
ලංකා විදුලි බල මණ්ඩලය පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ ආංශික අධ්‍යක්ෂණ කාරක සභාවට ඉදිරිපත් කරපු වාර්තාවේ තියෙනවා මේ වෙනුවට සිද්ධ වෙච්ච පාඩුව රුපියල් මිලියන 7,600ට වඩා වැඩි කියලා.
විය හැකි පාඩුව.
ඔව් විය හැකි පාඩුව. එතකොට අර අය කර ගැනීම එතකොට මේකට සමාන වෙනවද නැත්නම් ඊට වඩා අඩුද?
ඔය තිබෙන්නේ විය හැකි හානිය පිළිබඳව.
That refers to the potential loss. It is not an actual calculation. A committee has been appointed to determine whether an actual loss occurred and whether specific power plants suffered any operational damage. They will calculate and present a report. What is available now is only a preliminary observation.
දැන්ට තිබෙන්නේ ඇත්තටම ඒ අය කරපු පුරෝකතනයක්.
On 2 occasions, if the coal fails to meet standards, the agreement can be terminated. Journalists questioned why the authorities waited until 8 vessels arrived before acting.
මේ පළවෙනි නැවේ පමණයි.
Only the first vessel recorded a value below 5,900. That alone falls into the category you mentioned. The agreement can be reviewed only if it happens with 2 vessels. But according to the reports received, vessels 2 to 6, none of them had values below 5,900. They all fall within the required range. If the coal exceeds 5,900, we accept it. All these vessels fall within the 5,900 to 6,150 range, so we accepted them.
ඒ අනුව බාර ගන්න.
For over 7 decades, Sri Lanka was governed by a certain political system. And the Aragale came about after having identified that this political system that governed us for over 70 years is absolutely corrupt and did not have the best interest of the country or the best interest of the general public at heart. Subsequent to the Aragale, this government was appointed. But despite the efforts of the government to rid the country of corruption, despite Sri Lanka's rise in their rankings among several indexes that measure corruption in the country, there are remnants of that corrupt political system that governed Sri Lanka for over 70 years still existing in the country, and this is something very real, and it is the deep state of Sri Lanka. Now, when steps are taken to sweep away corruption from the political system in Sri Lanka, this deep state, this remnants of the former political system that still exist within the state mechanism are shaken. And when they are shaken, the effects of them being shaken are felt by the general public. However, because of the inconvenience that the shaking of this system causes the general public, that does not give a warrant to the government to go back on their promises or to slow down or take a step back from the steps that they are taking to rid Sri Lanka of corruption. The demand made, the mandate given to the government is absolutely clear. Rid Sri Lanka of corruption. Bring back all the money that was stolen from the general public and put it back into the state coffers. And don't forget, make sure that the wrongdoers who were responsible for this massive fraud and corruption face justice in Sri Lanka, that they face proper punishments. Now, it's against such a backdrop that a group of academics issued a strongly worded statement today to ensure that Professor Maitri Wickramasinghe, during the course of the investigations, is not subject to any unnecessary harassment or intimidation. This was a signed statement issued by a group of academics. Let's take a look at what they had to say.
It was revealed in court that Professor Maitri Wickramasinghe had recently been notified by the Financial Crimes Investigation Division of the CID to provide a statement regarding the ongoing case against former President Ranil Wickramasinghe over the alleged use of public funds to attend an event at the University of Wolverhampton. The joint statement issued on behalf of Professor Wickramasinghe emphasized that any investigation concerning matters of public accountability must be conducted transparently, fairly, and in strict adherence to due process. However, the statement further notes that the current process appears to be gradually shifting towards procedural actions centered around her husband, former President Ranil Wickramasinghe. The signatories call on authorities to guarantee that the investigative process does not expose individuals such as Professor Maitri Wickramasinghe to undue harassment, intimidation, or reputational harm. They also highlight that protecting scholars from political retaliation is an essential feature of a democratic society, and that the professional independence, dignity, and service record of Professor Wickramasinghe must be safeguarded. Over 50 individuals, including women's rights activists, legal experts, journalists, and former members of parliament, have signed the statement in support of Professor Wickramasinghe. The signatories include Radhika Kumaraswamy, Dr. Nimaka Fernando, Dr. Subangi Herath, Dr. Renuka Patirana, G.U.S. Gunavardhana, D. Munasinghe, Pushpa Ramlini Ratnayaka, Saroja Shivachandran, Sri Serene Xavier, Vishaka Dharmadasa, Vidya Pereira, Nirmali Wickramasinghe, Savitri Rodrigo, Shiana Pereira, Udayangani Dalwatta, Jeevani Karyawasan, Kumuduni Samuel, Serena Rahim, Suhara Aziz, and former MP Ferial Ashraf.
Now, speaking on the Davasa program that aired on our sister channel Sirasa TV today, representative of the Democratic National Alliance expressed these views regarding the statement that was issued.
What we are saying is this. Isn't this going back to the same old method? When Shirantha Rajapaksa was asked to come, wasn't it the same thing? Didn't she go to the Speaker's house and have the CID brought there to record a statement from her? Now this is part of that same process, isn't it? What we are saying is, if the law of this country is enforced against a person who plucks a mango, then that same law must be enforced against anyone else in the same way. Because we believe the law must be equal. Just yesterday, in England, the Labour Party had the law enforced. This is not about Maitri Wickramasinghe or Shiranti Rajapaksa or anyone else. The law must apply equally to all. If someone has been asked to come and give a statement regarding some alleged misuse of funds, then I ask, why not go to the Criminal Investigation Department? How many times have we been called to appear before the Criminal Investigations Department? Haven't we gone and given statements regarding the complaints we made connected to the Aragalaya? We went. We cannot say come to our house instead.
News First with the people.
Former Police Inspector Jagat Nishanta, who was arrested in Katunayaka in connection with the shooting incident at the Valigama W15 hotel, has been remanded until the 5th of next month. This order was issued after he was produced before the Mathura Magistrates Court today.
Former Police Inspector Jagat Nishanta was arrested yesterday afternoon at the Katunayaka International Airport by officers of the Criminal Investigation Department. He was taken into custody upon his return to Sri Lanka after having been overseas.
What exactly happened in the W15 incident?
On 31st of December 2023, shots were fired targeting the W15 hotel in Valigama. At the time of the incident, a group of officers from the Colombo Crimes Division, dressed in civilian clothes and travelling in a van, had arrived at the location claiming they were conducting a raid to seize narcotics or apprehend an organised criminal. Police officers from the Valigama police station who were on security duty near the hotel opened fire at the group. A CCD officer attached to the Colombo Crimes Division died in the incident, while another was injured. Former Police Inspector Jagat Nishanta was among the officers from Colombo who had travelled in civilian attire as part of that CCD team.
He had already gone overseas before he was named in this case and stayed in the UK as a legal permit holder. The relevant documents were submitted to court today. However, the CID informed court that since he had evaded appearing for this case for over a year, they needed to investigate his period of stay in the UK. To conduct that inquiry, they requested that he be remanded. The magistrate therefore ordered him to be remanded until the 5th and instructed that investigations be completed and presented within that time. As you may remember, this incident took place on the 31st December 2023. 10 suspects were identified in connection with the incident. Investigations by the Criminal Investigation Department were initiated against 9 of them. While legal action was underway, this particular officer had left the country. Although he had travelled overseas, we had already obtained a travel ban against him. Because of that travel ban, we were able to take him into custody upon his return. Therefore, all 10 suspects are currently under investigation by the CID before the Mathura Kotavila Magistrates Court. We are moving swiftly through the Attorney General's Department to reach the final legal decision. The next court date has been set for the 24th April 2026. Awareness on the government the Care and Dare program introduced to uplift communities affected by various disasters caused by Cyclone Ditwa was provided to the Mahanayaka Theras and Anunayaka Theras of the Askiri and Malbatu chapters.
Emergency relief services were carried out for several days through the Sirasa Shakti Sahanayatra to support the people affected by Cyclone Ditwa. The next step was to help rebuild and uplift the lives of those who were affected. For that purpose, Australia's Minderoo Foundation, one of the world's largest humanitarian foundations, partnered with the Gammadda movement. With the support of the Minderoo Foundation, Gammadda launched the Care and Dare program. Through this initiative, we have successfully completed 2 key phases for our people. The first phase was the relief phase. Having successfully concluded that stage, we then moved into the recovery phase. We are now preparing to begin yet another stage, the rebuild phase. Information on this was provided today to the Mahanayaka Theras and Anunayaka Theras of the Askiri and Malwatu chapters. The occasion was attended by the top management of the Capital Maharaja Group, including the Group Director and Gammadda leader Shevan Daniel. The delegation first met with the Mahanayaka Thera of the Askiri chapter of the Siam sect, the Most Venerable Varkagoda Sri Nyanratana Thera, and briefed him on the services already carried out under the Gammadda Care and Air program as well as future plans.
අපේ ගම්මැද්ද සාහනයාත්‍රා වැඩපිළිවෙල ආරම්භ කරා. මාස 3ක් තිස්සේ අපි දැන් කඳවුරු කරනවා රටවටේ ප්‍රදේශවල. හදිසි ආපදාවට එහායින් ගිහිල්ලා ඒ තාමත් ඒ නියෝජනය කරනවා මේ සාමාන්‍ය. අපේ දෙවෙනි අදියර දැන් ඉවරයි. ඊළඟ අදියර තමයි ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ ජීවනෝපාය කෘෂිකාර්මය වගේ ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ ඉදිරියට රැකියාව වලට අපි උදව් කරන බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා මහා සාමාන්‍ය.
The delegation then met the Mahanayaka Thera of the Malvata chapter of the Siam sect, the Most Venerable Tibbatuwave Sri Sumangala Thera, and received his blessings. After that, the delegation met with the Anunayaka Thera of the Askiri chapter of the Siam sect, the Venerable Narampalava Ananda Thera, and received blessings.
Tsunami පස්සේ අපට දන්නුම ස්වභාවික උපද්‍රවය මේ වෙලාවේ ඇත්තටම මේ සිරස මාධ්‍ය ඇතුළට ඉතින් මාධ්‍ය ආයතන ලොකු කාර්යභාරයක් කළා කියන අපි දැක්කා. ඒක ගොඩක් වටිනවා. මොකද තොරතුරු වාර්තාකරණයෙන් එහාට ගිහිල්ලා ඒ වගේ මානුෂීය මෙහෙවරක යෙදෙන එක නිරන්තරයෙන්ම දකින්නවා. මේ කඳුකරේ වෙච්ච මේ හානියෙන් ලොකු මේ විනාශයක් සිද්ධ වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒ හින්දා ඒ අයට මේ කිසියම් ආකාරයක ඊළඟට ඒලගේ ජීවිතේ ගොඩනගා ගන්න උදව් කරනවා කියන එක නම් බොහොමත්ම වටිනවා. රජයකටත් සමහර මේ වගේ දේවල් තනියෙන් කරන්න බැහැ නේද? ඒකට සිරස මාධ්‍යයෙන් ඉතින් මේ කරන කාර්යය.
The delegation then visited the Anunayaka Thera of the Malvata chapter of the Siam sect, the Most Venerable Dimulkumbure Sri Vimaladhamma Thera.
අතු කණ්ඩායම මේ කරන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන ක්‍රියාකාරකම පිළිබඳව අපි තාමත්ම අගේ කොට කලකනවා නැති බැරි අයට නැගී හිටින්න අටදීමක් තමයි ඔබතුමා අතුළු මේ කණ්ඩායම කිරීමට බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ. එතෙන් අපි ආශිර්වාද කරනවා.
With the partnership of Australia's Minderoo Foundation, the world's largest volunteer-driven humanitarian organisation, the next phase of the Gammadda Care and Air program, the rebuild phase, is set to commence soon for the benefit of the people.
3 newly appointed ambassadors presented credentials to President Anurukumara Dissanayaka.
3 newly appointed ambassadors to Sri Lanka presented their credentials to President Anurukumara Dissanayaka this morning at the Presidential Secretariat. Accordingly, Patricia Lazara Pekulguera, the newly appointed ambassador of the Republic of Cuba to Colombo, Hamad Mohammed Abdallah Al Sanad Al Dosari, the newly appointed ambassador of the state of Qatar to Colombo, and Thomas Mensen, the newly appointed ambassador of the Republic of Slovenia based in New Delhi, formally assumed their diplomatic roles following the credential ceremony. After accepting their letters of credence, President Dissanayaka engaged in cordial discussions with the new envoys.
Guarding both sea and land, the Sri Lanka Air Force's vigilant hawk eye, the Sri Lanka Sky Warriors, takes centre stage tonight.
Guarding both sea and land, this is the hawk eye of the Sri Lanka Air Force.
Sky Warriors.
Today we are ready for our second mission. So this is the Maritime Squadron, the number 3 Maritime Squadron of the Sri Lanka Air Force. They're ever watchful and they're ever ready to serve the nation and safeguard the nation when it's needed the most. This is the number 3 Maritime Squadron of the Sri Lanka Air Force.
The Sri Lanka Air Force No. 3 Maritime Squadron, first established in 1965 at the Katunayake Air Force Base and relocated to China Bay in Trincomalee in 1966, was re-established once again in 2019. From its position at China Bay Air Force Base, the squadron remains prepared to respond instantly at any moment, acting swiftly on intelligence to secure the nation's sea, land and air. The No. 3 Maritime Squadron is equipped with state-of-the-art Beechcraft King Air 200, 350 and 360 ER aircraft.
No. 3 Maritime Squadron stands as the premier maritime surveillance arm of Sri Lanka Air Force. Our responsibility extends across Sri Lanka's vast maritime and land domains. The squadron conducts 24-hour continuous maritime surveillance operations. Through these missions, we detect and monitor illegal fishing activities, unauthorized maritime intrusions, suspicious movements at sea, drug trafficking and any other activities that may pose a threat to national security.
In addition to its defense role, the No. 3 Maritime Squadron also plays a crucial part in weather data updates, medical relief operations and emergency rescue missions.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Vijitha Herath, addressed the high-level segment of the Conference of Disarmament in Geneva, reaffirming Sri Lanka's firm commitment to global disarmament and multilateral cooperation. In his statement, the minister reiterated Sri Lanka's long-standing support for nuclear weapon-free zones and called for tangible progress in establishing such zones, particularly in the Middle East.
In light of the current global landscape, it has become increasingly evident that enduring peace and security are of vital importance for all. The prevailing geopolitical tensions have unfortunately created a stalemate in multilateral disarmament efforts while posing significant challenges to international humanitarian law. To safeguard the future of humanity, our collective action must be treated as an utmost priority. Building trust and mutual respect remains the essential foundation for effective collective decision-making at multilateral fora. Our goal must remain steadfast to ensure a secure and stable world for future generations. Sri Lanka remains a pioneering supporter of nuclear weapons-free zones. In the current global context, I wish to recall Sri Lanka's significant contribution to the declaration issued at the 1964 NAM summit in Cairo, which called for the establishment of denuclearized zones. We continue to strongly support and call for a tangible way forward in establishing these zones, particularly in the Middle East, while noting that the total elimination and non-proliferation remain the only guarantees against the use of nuclear weapons. Sri Lanka urges that the legitimate expectation of non-nuclear weapons states to receive unconditional, non-discriminatory and legally binding negative security assurances be guaranteed through the work of the Conference on Disarmament. On humanitarian disarmament, Sri Lanka continues to be an active partner in humanitarian demining and currently serves as a senior member of the Victim Assistance Committee of the Anti-Personnel Mine Ban Convention. We also remain committed to the Cluster Munitions Convention, of which Sri Lanka held the presidency in 2019. Sri Lanka is cognizant of the impact of emerging technologies which have already changed the face of the current global disarmament architecture while putting international humanitarian law at a grave risk. In this current context, Sri Lanka has been advocating for the early commencement of negotiations on a legally binding instrument to prohibit lethal autonomous weapon systems. Similarly, while identifying the growing threats to outer space security from the rapid advancements in space technologies, Sri Lanka, as a long-standing partner in outer space disarmament, continues to support the negotiation of a legally binding instrument preventing an arms race in outer space. Sri Lanka stands ready to work with all nations to ensure that global efforts to secure a safer world for our future generations are pursued vigorously and realized as possible.
Sri Lanka's textile and apparel sector is set to take centre stage next month as a major international exhibition returns to Colombo.
The Textile Series Exhibition 2026 will be held from the 5th to the 7th of March at the Sri Lanka Exhibition and Convention Centre. The event is organised by CEMS Global, bringing together industry leaders, manufacturers, suppliers and buyers under one roof. The exhibition will showcase the latest innovations in textile machinery, fabrics, accessories and garment technology. Chairman and CEO of the Sri Lanka Export Development Board, Mangala Vijay Singh, has said the apparel sector continues to play a pivotal role in Sri Lanka's overall export performance and long-term growth strategy.
Our target is, through the National Export Development Plan, our target is to reach more than 8 billion export revenue by 2030. So that is why EDB is working with the relevant stakeholders to get that target. So Sri Lanka has gained an international reputation as a reliable and high-quality manufacturing, supplying into many reputed international brands. So this event will be good opportunity for Sri Lankan apparel manufacturers and exporters to meet global suppliers face to face before committing to buying it from the bulk product from the overseas. So in addition to that, there are good thing. We have seen that Sri Lanka hopes to increase our apparel to the UK, because you know that from this year 2026 January 1st onward, under the UK DCT scheme, Sri Lanka can export to the UK with a zero tariff. So last year we have exported nearly 930 million export to the UK. Out of that, 60% from the apparel. We have exported more than 600 million apparel to the UK. So from January onwards, we are in a position to export with a zero tariff. And also from the today onwards, even though USA our export USA is one of our key export destination, mainly for the apparel, with a 10% reduction tariff, that also can play a big role in the apparel industry.
Meanwhile, Chairman of the Joint Apparel Association Forum of Sri Lanka, Felix Fernando, stressed the need for stronger policy reforms and increased foreign direct investment to achieve the country's ambitious export goals.
Like we need certain infrastructure like FTAs, preferential trade agreements, then also like certain laws need to be looked at again, customs laws, BOI, of course these tax laws. At the moment, I'm questioning, investors are questioning, why should we come to Sri Lanka for investments? We have seen that, on average, we have been attracting about $600 million to $1 billion yearly on FDIs. But that is not good enough for us to reach those targets. That's not good enough for Sri Lanka to achieve those export goals, as well as also GDP targets, what the government has said. So that's very much important. We need to make sure how we are able to attract, whether it's local or foreign investments. So I think, although I make these comments, but I also look at positively. Things are happening a little bit better now for the country. So we hope that government will have the courage to clear all the obstacles and ensure that they'll be able to attract more investors to the country, and we'll be able to reach these tough goals set for 2030.
Chairperson of the Sri Lanka Apparel Exporters Association, Rajitha Jayasuriya, highlighted Sri Lanka's global reputation as a trusted and ethical apparel sourcing destination. With both local and international participants expected to attend, the event is anticipated to boost Sri Lanka's position in the global textile and apparel market. The Mexican security minister announced that Mexico has sent thousands of soldiers to strengthen security following a surge in violence after the killing of a major drug cartel leader. Mexico has deployed thousands of soldiers to bolster security, the country's security minister confirmed, after a wave of violence erupted following the death of a powerful drug lord. Defense Secretary Ricardo Travilla said an extra 2,500 soldiers had been sent to western Mexico on Monday, with the government saying about 9,500 troops have been deployed overall since Sunday. At least 20 states have seen unrest since Nemesio Squera Cervantes, better known as El Mencho, died in custody on Sunday shortly after being captured by Mexican special forces in Jalisco state. The Jalisco New Generation cartel is one of Mexico's most feared criminal organizations, and its leader was the country's most wanted man. At least 25 members of Mexico's National Guard have died in Jalisco state since the violence erupted, the country's security minister confirmed. El Mencho was captured after forces tracked down a romantic partner he was meeting, according to Travilla. The drug lord was seriously injured in a firefight between his bodyguards and the military commandos deployed to capture him, and he died while the military was transporting him from the town of Tapalpa to the capital Mexico City. The Defense Ministry said at least 6 of El Mencho's security guards were also killed in the operation, while 3 members of the Mexican military were injured. Mexico President Claudia Sheinbaum has praised the army's operation that led to El Mencho's death and said her priority is to guarantee peace and security across the country. As news of El Mencho's death spread, members of his cartel launched attacks in many towns and cities where the CJGN is active. In some towns, they blocked roads by throwing spikes and nails onto the tarmac, while in others they commandeered buses and other vehicles, then torched them in the middle of the road. Sheinbaum said that the roadblocks had been cleared by Monday morning. However, dozens of banks and local businesses have been damaged after they were set alight by cartel members. The U.S. State Department had offered a $15 million reward for information leading to El Mencho's capture. The Mexican Ministry of Defense said the raid aimed at capturing El Mencho had been carried out by the Mexican army, supported by the country's National Guard and the Air Force. It added that complementary information provided by the U.S. had helped seize the drug lord, but Mexico confirmed on Monday that no U.S. forces were involved in his killing.
US President Donald Trump's latest global tariffs have taken effect at 10% after the Supreme Court halted several of his broader import tax measures on Friday.
US President Donald Trump's new global tariffs have come into effect at 10% after the Supreme Court blocked many of his sweeping import taxes on Friday. Just hours after last week's ruling, the president signed an executive order to impose the new levy from the 24th February. He later threatened to raise the tariff to 15%, but has not yet issued an official directive to increase the rate. The administration is applying the levy under Section 122 of the 1974 Trade Act, which allows the president to impose the charge for 150 days without congressional approval. The executive order said the temporary import duty was intended to, quote, address fundamental international payments problems and continue the administration's work to rebalance our trade relationships to benefit American workers, farmers and manufacturers, unquote. The president has argued that tariffs are necessary to reduce America's trade deficit, the amount by which imports exceed exports. But the deficit reached a fresh high last week, widening by 2.1% compared to 2024 and hitting roughly $1.2 trillion. The US has already collected at least $130 billion in tariffs using the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act, according to the most recent official data. Trump has been highly critical of the Supreme Court's decision, calling it ridiculous, poorly written, and extraordinarily anti-American. In a 6-3 decision, justices on the highest US court found that the president had overstepped his powers when he introduced sweeping global tariffs last year using the IEEPA. All 7 people on board an air ambulance were killed when the aircraft crashed near Simaria in Jharkhand's Chhatra district on Monday evening. The flight was en route from Ranchi to Delhi when the accident occurred. 7 people were killed when a chartered air ambulance crashed late Monday night in the eastern Indian state of Jharkhand in eastern India. Rescue and medical teams rushed to the crash site, which was located deep in a forest. India's Directorate General of Civil Aviation said the Beechcraft C-90 airplane operated by Redbird Airways had requested for deviation due to weather while flying from Ranchi to Delhi. The aircraft lost contact with air traffic control 23 minutes after taking off at 7:11 p.m. Indian time and crashed in Kasaria region of the state. Foreign media cited eyewitnesses saying they heard a loud bang before seeing smoke rise from a heavily forested area. Images from the scene showed the crumpled airplane covered in leaves and debris from the crash while rescue officials roamed the site. State officials suspect the aircraft lost control due to turbulence. India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau was also sent to the site.
Sri Lankan cricketer Dunith Wellalage says that everyone in the team is committed to achieving victory in tomorrow's Super 8 encounter against New Zealand. He shared these views during the pre-match press conference held today.
The second match featuring the Sri Lankan team in the Super 8 round of the 2026 T20 World Cup will be held at the R. Premadasa Stadium in Colombo tomorrow. Sri Lankan cricketer Dunith Wellalage shared his thoughts on the team's preparation for the match during a press conference held today.
මුලින්ම කිව්වොත් එහෙම අපි හොඳ කම්බැක් එකක් දෙන්න ටීම් එකක් විදියට බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ අපේ ප්‍රෙපරේෂන් ගොඩක් හොඳයි හොඳට ප්‍රැක්ටිස් කරලා හැම වෙලාවෙම කෝචස්ලාගෙනුත් අපේ ටීම් එකට ලොකු සපෝට් එකක් හම්බ වෙනවා සීනියර් ප්ලේයර්ස්ලාගෙන් ලොකු සපෝට් එකක් හම්බ වෙනවා හැම වෙලාවෙම අපිට කෝචස්ලා කියන්නේ මැච් එකෙන් මැච් එකට ප්ලෑන් කරන්න කියලා ප්ලේයර්ස්ලාගේ මානසිකත්වය හොඳ තැනක තියාගන්න එක තමයි වැදගත් වෙන්නේ ඉතින් ඉම්පෝටන්ට් මැච් දෙකක් තියෙන්නේ හොඳ තරගයක් දෙන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා
In a high-stakes Super 8 clash at the ICC T20 World Cup 2026, Pakistan posted a competitive total of 164 for 9 after electing to bat against England. The match underway at the Pallakala International Cricket Stadium in Kandy saw Pakistan grind out crucial runs despite regular wickets falling through their innings. Now in response, England have begun their chase of 165, aiming to secure an important victory as the Super 8 stage intensifies. A short while ago, England were on 103 runs. And with that, we'll also wrap up news for tonight.
Thank you for watching. Good night.